All right, welcome to episode 58 of Random Thoughts. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. One thing that drives us, especially in term one, drives us a little crazy, is kids coming in sore as all hell that can't train, and so we have to back off things because they've had an Aths comp.
Yeah.
They ran 800, 400, 200, 100 and the relays at school.
Because they were the best athlete, and the teacher's like, you're doing all the events.
Yep, jump in all of them, you'll get to state or zone in a handful.
Yep.
Let's just go. And then we have this spate of, we're pretty good for injuries, but just soreness and niggling, and we have to monitor and be really careful after that.
And then every now and then there'll be someone who actually tears a thing properly. Generally, it's not our absolute rookies because they're too weak to develop the velocity to.
So they couldn't run fast enough to tear anything anyway.
It's not our top guns because they're strong enough to. They can actually. You get to a point where you're strong enough to do stupid stuff.
You can make mistakes. Yeah. I'm not there yet. James lives there. He lives in a permanent state. I'm not saying he makes mistakes, but he could make a lot because he's just got that robustness and that.
Yeah.
And what we're about to talk to now, he's got enough of a chronic loading in his body, both running and lifting wise, that he's pretty robust.
Whereas those middle people, they're just strong enough to get themselves into trouble.
Yeah.
Just fast enough to get themselves into trouble.
Just fast enough to create problems because they're moving nicely enough. Yeah.
And I think the concept, it's one of those things that once you know about it, once you've thought about it, the acute to chronic workload ratio concept, it influences how you see this stuff. And it just seems, it's much more starkly obvious how foolish it is to do that when you go into that.
It's such a lead principle in everying S&C,
so
I think.
I'd like to talk about that a little bit, and then we'll circle back to how you can maybe make a difference to prevent drama. So a couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to attend a conference called Mastering Load, and it was a who's who of the best people in the world. Thanks Physio Sports Brighton. It was a great conference. And they had Dr. Tim Gabbett, Mick Drew, Alex Contouris, Dr. Darren Burgess. It was amazing. Like this amazing lineup. And they all presented on their various areas of particular expertise within the mastering load concept. But at the end of the weekend, you could distill it down to one fundamental concept, which is your acute to chronic workload ratio is a really important concept. And it's really simple. It's what are you doing this week? What are you planning on doing this week compared to what have you been doing for a rolling average of the previous 3 weeks? So it's literally the question, have you been doing that lately?
Yeah. So and if so, how much? And therefore that will dictate what you should do this week to stay healthy and happy.
And so the concept is, imagine if I didn't run for a year and then I did 50 100 meter sprints as fast as I could. I'm guaranteed, it's not an if, it's not a maybe, I'm guaranteed to tear my hamstring. If something else doesn't tear, I'm guaranteed
if it's not the hamstring, it'll be the quad early, or it'll be the quad a little later, the calf a little later.
But you're guaranteed, because what you have is the tissues have no exposure to that high speed running stress.
Yeah, and so when we talk about acute to chronic, there's loading in all senses. So there's literal loading in the gym.
Yeah.
We have athletes come off a 14 or 21 day gap. We have to back off, especially if they're lifting in the more intense upper sort of areas.
The ratio's out.
Yeah, and so it's not just, I've been playing and I've been doing this. Yeah, it's like, that's your playing acute to chronic ratio. That's your running acute to chronic ratio. What's your lifting? So it's
very specific.
Very specific to everything. And high speed running is the one where you see go wrong the most. And that seems to be the one that seems you have to really fine tune and dial into your high speed acceleration and sprinting.
And at AFL level, they do it exquisitely. Like Dr. Darren Burgess.
To the meter.
I saw his thing and I was just like, oh, I'm rubbish. He was so good. So what they do is that they pick, they find, I think it's a 6 week window where so your running is divided up into 6 zones. So zone 6 is
7 meters per second, I think.
Yeah,
and
so it's fast.
And it's at 7 meters per second. And to give you comparison, Bolt at top speed is about 11.5 to 12. Yeah. So we're talking pretty fast here.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have a comparison. We'll dig up at the end a comparison to just what running, say, 4-minute 30 Ks is. I'd be curious to see what the pace
that will be linked or written.
Because the Bolt thing makes it sound. I reckon that actually makes it sound a bit slow.
Yeah, you got to remember he's insane though. So I'll get a human example.
Yeah, get a human example.
Yeah.
And so so what they do is they take they find a 6 week block where the footy player had done their highest amount of zone 6 running over 6 weeks and not got injured, and they go, right, that's actually the amount you can tolerate. That's now set a floor, because everyone thinks in terms of the ceiling, of load and speed, but the floor is really important. You've got to have that there as well, and that sets the floor. Okay, you've got to run X amount of meters per week in zone 6 in order to maintain your inoculation, to maintain your adaptation for high speed running.
Yeah, your tissue's ability to tolerate those forces and those loads.
And so to put it another way, it's all about avoiding sudden spikes. So going from 3 minutes of running in zone 6 to 6 minutes, that's actually a big spike. And it's all about avoiding that in terms of that high speed work. So athletics carnivals.
I got one example. This is specific to just a couple of nights ago, actually. An athlete, one of our distance runners was in. He'll know who he is. Awesome work at Nationals, had a really good comp.
So just give context of how fast he is.
So he runs...
elite level, like.
Yeah, so he runs a 3K. I think he's cracked 9 now. Did he crack 9?
Yeah, so 850 something.
853 or 854.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've forgotten the number, but fast.
For 3K.
Yeah. He runs 2 minute 55Ks when he's doing a repeat. It's like just insane. So work out what his meters per second is.
Yeah.
So he had a great Nationals.
Let's put that in. Let's work that out. That's a good benchmark.
Yeah. So
because that's fast, but it's still nothing compared to zone 6 stuff.
Yeah. Let's just clarify that meters per second stuff. So Bolt runs the 100 in 9.58, which gives him a 12 meters per second average speed. Van Niekerk runs the 400, the world record, in 43.03, which is 9 meters per second. Rudisha, who holds the 800 world record at 140.9, he runs in 7.9 meters per second. Our core advantage athlete with a 3K time of 8:54, he runs in 5.64 meters per second. Now, if you're on average to above average running, you've got a pretty decent time. A 4:30 minute per kilometer time or pace is 3.7 meters per second. Now, if you're more of a track athlete and you're running sort of the 400s, if your 400 time is under 60 seconds, that's 6.66 reoccurring meters per second. And if you're going to maintain that 7 meters per second for an entire kilometer, you'd be doing it at 2 minutes 22 per kilometer, which is pretty fast. So he had a great Nationals, tapered before that, so he's dropped his volume before, had a great Nationals, as you should do, peaked for that beautifully. Then came back and just was a little flat, and as you are post-tournament, pretty exhausted, there's a lot of energy goes into that. Had a week off, we sort of let him, he was like, yeah, just do whatever. And then came back, had a decent week of training, and then went and did hills, 200 meter hills, like real hard, and then went and did a real hard long run where he did an 85 minute run, where like a real long one on the weekend.
Wow.
And then follow up the next week with some 4s and 8s. And he came to me and he said, Jacob, my hip flexor is just blown up. I was like, you don't say.
And then to put it in context, he may well be the smartest athlete in terms of like when I went to
in terms of getting it, yeah.
Yeah, like when I was going to set his taper, I was like, I said, what do you think you should do? And he just went bang, 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 bang. He listed exactly what I would have said. And I was like, that's pretty good for a kid.
Yeah,
like he's really
he gets his sport. He understands exactly where he needs to be.
Yeah, but it's still so that acute to chronic workload ratio, that's a fundamental principle, and you violate that principle at your peril. It's just troughs and spikes, and the problem is too for him is he would have gone, oh, that's actually not that unusual for me, and
he was feeling amazing too.
But it's all relative to what you've been doing lately.
Yeah.
So the mountain is only as high in relation to the valley below it. So if you've been in a valley, a moderate-sized mountain is actually really high. Yeah,
because you've got to come back to baseline. And he just overshot straight up to the top. Yeah.
And so
didn't acclimatise to the altitude.
Oh, honey. And so the hilarious thing is, we think of that violation of the principle, and then we think of these track carnivals, where kids who, like our basketballers who never run more than 16 metres foul under foul, they've never run. Or almost never run beyond that.
Even our netball, like the netball and basketball is the same, but even our soccer players, field's 90 metres long. They're barely going to run more than 30 or 40 metres, like at high speed.
It's
and all of a sudden it's like, all right, you can do the 2, the 4, the 8, and the 1500.
Yeah,
all in the same day.
And then so it's a miracle they don't all tear stuff. Yeah. But enough of them get enough soreness that what it does is it interferes with our training because we have to take into account. We have to not be part of the problem, so we've got to back them off, and then you probably lose. I reckon an athletics carnival can cost you comfortably 3 weeks of progress. And this doesn't sound like much, but every week counts. Like you want,
especially when you've got an athlete who's in season 52 weeks of the year. You waste 3. Like you've only got so many chances you can push.
You're going to lose minimum 2 weeks every year to illness.
Yep.
You're going to lose
maybe 2 to holidays.
2 to 4
to holidays.
School camps. You're going to lose, and because you don't, if the school camp's 3 days, you lose the week because they're stuffed when they come back.
Yeah. Because you've only got so many high intensity or big dollars to spend, and so an athletic carnival is a lot of those.
And so for our kids, what I would love to and I want to think we can probably improve on is saying to them, okay, when are you going to do an athlete? Like actually actively interrogating them and saying, okay, when is it? Okay, that's in 10 weeks. Right, what distances are you going to do? They're going to say this, and let's say, you know what, let's assume that the PE teacher at the last minute also puts you into this and this.
Chuck in an extra couple, yeah.
And let's just put a little bit of work to build you up to that. Not an amazing amount, but let's just start doing some 4s, or even, start, if they're normally only doing 20s, start doing some 30s and 40s. And just by the time you get 10 weeks in, you're in the ball. It doesn't have to be you're running exactly that speed or exactly that volume.
But just to bring the floor up.
And the big thing is we see heaps of really tight hip flexors and tight quads. And so just actually, because they are not often over 20 metres in acceleration mechanics, you're not really opening the hips up in the same way as you do at top speed.
No, really flying through, yeah.
So if it was a case where, for whatever reason, we couldn't load them more, we couldn't inoculate them because their training was too overloaded already, I would just be saying, you know what, okay, let's just do a minimal effective dose of running that's fast enough to open the hips up a bit, so you're at least used, your hips and your quads are used to that.
Getting through the cycle,
shape.
yeah.
Yeah. And then also, I would have them try and not let the PE teacher rule everything. Sorry, PE teachers.
Yeah. Try and control your own loading on that day a little bit.
Yeah, so increase your load tolerance in preparation of it.
So bring your floor up. So and also getting used to a track is important. Yeah. If you're running at a track, or if you're running on grass and you're used to running on a court,
it's good for a bit of variety.
Getting used to that in prep, because running on grass is quite different to running on on track.
That's a great one. That's a huge misunderstood thing. People feel running on the track and they go, "Oh, it feels so soft and lovely," and like it's really gentle on the body. It's actually not, because it's actually pushing back against you. The harder you push into it, it's rubber. It's bouncing back at you. So it's actually harder on your body than you realise.
Yeah, so if you're weak and without that volume load in there, that's going to have a massive play on things, because it really loads up the tendons more than they were previously used to on, say, a hard court, for example, or on grass. Yeah. So if you're running on a track, get out on the track and do a little bit of work there as well. Start gently, but as a way of inoculating that. Because that's also part of the acute to chronic workout ratio. It's not just high-speed running, strength work, on-court stuff, agility work. There's also what surface are you doing that on? Is it on concrete? Is it on grass? What shoes,
Yeah. And I'd probably be doing a little bit of seated calf isometric work, just as a basic inoculation against some Achilles.
For your Achilles, yeah. Which that's part of the shin splint video. I'll link that in this as well. Yeah. Can we quickly just touch on the lag with injuries when it comes to acute to chronic as well? Because people go, "Oh, but I just had a thing and I've had no injury."
We've had athletes come back from nationals this week, and I've been counselling them. I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, you're back? Okay. You know what this means?" Yeah.
Yeah. So
far away.
The lag's really interesting. So if you think of the tournament and the day one post tournament, day 1 through to 14, you're at a markedly elevated risk of soft tissue. That's when if they're going to happen, they're typically happening during that range.
Yeah, so because of tissue adaptation speeds, there's a latency and a lag in when the injuries actually present themselves.
Yeah.
You often don't get injured on the Aths. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you don't get injured on the Aths carnival, but because of the effect that has on the body and the disruption of your acute to chronic, you're then set up for this period of time afterwards where we as strength coaches have nightmares and we freak out at every...
It doesn't have to be a carnival. It can be just a very... The real thing is that there's a latency from the spike in volume, whatever that spike is, whether that be a tournament, basketball tournament, carnival, footy...
A stupid first week back at training.
There's a latency there. So you've got that first 14 days where it's muscles, and then about a month later is when the bony stress. So you can...
So 0 to 14 is sort of muscular, sort of window of risk, if you will. Anywhere sort of from 7 to 21, so they kind of overlap a bit. 7 to 21 days is kind of your tendon. That's when your patella or your Achilles tendon is going to start getting grumpy and flow up. Yeah. But then the real danger is when we get to 21, 28 days, we start looking at bony stress and stress reactions.
It's very predictable. I predicted it with one of our athletes who's now tearing up football. I think she's going amazing. And I literally called it almost to the day. Like I said to her after she'd had a spike, I said, I looked at her, she'd done not much, then everything, and I was like, I'm worried about you having a bony, stress fracture in about a month's time. And it was almost to the day. So it's actually more predictable than people realise. It's not this random thing.
Oh my God, unlucky me, I got a stress fracture. You got to look back.
You got to look back a month ago. What were you doing a month ago? Yeah. And so again, that's the same thing of preparing for getting that floor up. So you've got that chronic workload under your belt. It's just always about thinking, I need to have this workload under my belt in order to cope with more of this workload. Final thought is the art of it is sneaking. You're being it's a bit like you're driving. It's a bit like you're driving a rally car on an icy road, and you want to be driving just fast enough that you don't lose the race. But you don't want to go so fast that you fall off the cliff.
Because if you crash, you definitely can't win the race.
Yeah, and that's the art of getting someone's load up. To a point where because once they break through that point, they're in that sweet spot where it's
once they're inside their floor and ceiling,
you're
good to go.
Because the injury risk is U-shaped, like the relationship is U-shaped, where when you're in that moderate area, you've got the lowest injury risk, and you're sweet and you can just carry on.
Happy days.
Cool.
That's all. I think we'll leave it there.
All right, good.